Hi everyone, Harris here with iDownload Blog. If there are two trends that we can very safely bet on in 2025, it's solid state drives and USB-C. The days of hard disk drives, at least for the go-to reliable backup solutions for most people's storage needs, is pretty much over. They're clunky and it's just not fast or reliable enough when you have solid state drives that have gone down so much in price. And USB-C SSDs have become a staple for so many people, not just creators like myself, people who are constantly editing video and can't be relying on the internal storage of their computers, or else I'd be running out of storage every other day. But also for everyday people who are just trying to back up their files or work on smaller projects, whatever the circumstance may be. People aren't relying on the internal storage as much with their computers. Now, the two main players over the last few years have seemed to be Samsung with their T7, their T5 originally, and their T9 drives, as well as SanDisk. And I've used both of these for years, but over the years, there has been a lot of controversy with SanDisk's drives failing and crashing. You may have even seen The Verge, which had a piece calling out the SanDisk drives for just completely failing and crashing. So I'm always on the lookout for the best combination of portability, a small form factor, a fast drive, and a reliable drive. And I think I found the one that I like, so much so that I now have about 16 terabytes worth of these drives. And this is the Crucial X10 Pro drive, which a friend recommended to me about a year ago, and I've been using them ever since because they are about the smallest drive on the market. They have about the fastest max speed of any drive on the market, and they have been very reliable for me, and the price continues to drop down to the point where you can get a 4 terabyte drive for sometimes as little as $250, which is just a steal compared to even just recent years. So let's go ahead and look at this Crucial X10 Pro drive and whether it might be right for you. Okay, so for starters, this goes up to 4 terabytes, which is great, and I love having 4 terabytes. And obviously there are pros and cons to getting bigger storage sizes. The con obviously being something that a lot of people are worried about, that if you fill it up all the way and then it were to crash, that is up to 4 terabytes of data that you're losing. Whereas when you have a smaller drive, you're forced to back up more often or have more redundancy because it's a smaller drive. So obviously a pro and a con, but generally speaking, with how large my multicam projects get when I'm working with, 3 4K clips that are an hour and a half to 2 hours, I definitely want something that can go up to 4 terabytes so I'm not filling up my hard drive halfway through a project every other day. I do wish this came with an 8 terabyte option, but 4 terabytes seems to be basically the industry standard for these small portable USB-C SSDs. There are a few options that go up to 8 terabytes. Samsung has a really small one, which maxes out at about 500 megabytes per second, which I think would be just a little bit too slow for me. SanDisk makes a stationary one, but that's plug-in power, and I don't know why I would want that personally. And then it also looks like SanDisk makes their Extreme drive in 8 terabytes, which it depends on the day you check if it's even available. But again, just because of all the reliability issues in the past couple years, I personally am not looking to go into the direction of SanDisk right now unless something really consistently and radically changes with the reliability of those products. So for the most part, it seems like 4 terabytes is the max. And this drive is tiny. It's the smallest that I've tested outside of perhaps the Sabrent Rocket Nano drive, but this is really, really small. It is 2.56 by 1.97 by 0.39 inches, or 6.5 by 5 by 1 centimeter. It's really small. It does have a little lanyard slot, so you can attach this to a lanyard or a hook or something. I personally won't be doing that because I don't want this dangling off of a bag or anything like that. When I'm carrying it around, I generally keep it tucked into a little sleeve on the back of my Mac. Now, speaking of that, the reason I like drives to be as small as possible, obviously portability is just a benefit if you're taking this around with you, but I almost always keep this now attached to my Mac, so I'm not always fiddling with taking it in and out of cases and sometimes forgetting it, sometimes remembering it. I've tried two options now. I've tried the Velcro on the back of the drive and the Velcro on the computer, and also uses the least adhesive possible. And I've also tried this kind of adhesive pocket, which seems to work, but there are 2 pockets on this, but it's basically impossible to fit two of anything inside of it because it's just too tight, doesn't stretch enough. So it almost seems useless to have that second pocket. But nonetheless, this does work pretty well and also allows me to tuck the cable inside it as well. So I do have that option for carrying around this drive pretty much at all times, but I'm definitely not going to be fitting a second drive in there unless it was paper thin. But two options for basically always having my SSD with me on my computer. And this way, sometimes I'm driving to work and I'll actually have my computer in the seat next to me exporting a file, and I don't have to worry about carrying my Mac around with me because basically the drive is never moving. It's not going to accidentally fall out or anything like that because it is pretty secure on the back of my Mac. Is that the best practice? Well, maybe not, but it's the one I'm doing nonetheless. Now, in terms of durability, the best practice is always keep it away from dirt, keep it away from water, and don't drop it. Just don't. Now, SSDs are much more reliable than a physical hard disk spinning drive. I would not trust any drop with something like this, but Crucial advertises that you can drop this up to 7.5 feet. Again, I wouldn't. I'm not going to test that. I wouldn't try that. 7.5 feet is a lot of feet. So at least it has that rating. So if you do accidentally drop it, you might be okay. There's also IP55 water and dust resistance, which means a little bit of dust and a little bit of water. It's a little bit less resistance than SanDisk offers with their IP65, but it's better than nothing. But again, just do your best to keep it away from all dust, dirt, water, and dropping. Now, in terms of transfer speeds with this, it claims up to 2,100 megabytes per second, but that's if you have USB 3.2 Gen 2x2, which almost no computers support that, and especially not the Mac, unfortunately. So most likely you are going to be maxing out with your Thunderbolt 3 or 4 speeds at about 1,000 megabytes per second. And that's generally what I was getting with my speed test, actually closer to probably about 900 megabytes per second. Now, for me and just my anecdotal day-to-day experience, like I said, I'm often, or almost every day, I'm editing multicam in Final Cut Pro clips that are usually about 90-minute clips, 4K. I am using the minimum bit rate on my Lumix camera, so it only comes out to less than 100 megabytes per second in terms of the filming bit rate. But I'm editing 3 of those, and I have no problems whatsoever with my performance. I do have an M4 Pro MacBook Pro, so there's plenty of power there. But I did find that when I had my Samsung drive, I was finding some struggles with it just being really, really slow in Final Cut Pro with my huge libraries, and I just haven't had that with my Crucial drive. So although unfortunately you're not going to be getting those 2,000 megabytes per second read and write speed unless you have a USB 3.2 Gen 2x2 enabled computer, most likely you'll be getting under 1,000 megabytes per second. Now, this does get warm when you're using it, but again, in my usage of using it with Final Cut Pro, it doesn't get too hot, and I haven't run into any issues of, it is getting too hot, and generally it's always behind my computer anyway. Now, you can also use this with your iPhone with the USB-C, so if you want to use this for recording ProRes right into an SSD from your iPhone, you can do that. Unfortunately, you can't record regular iPhone video into this. You have to do ProRes or use a third-party application if you want to have more versatility and control when recording to an SSD. Now, I was mentioning that SanDisk has been having a lot of reliability problems, and I do have to mention that on my 4th drive that I bought, I did have an issue on day 2 of it basically not showing up on my Mac. It did show up in Disk Utility, but I just couldn't access it in Finder. Went through every troubleshoot option I could think of, even went through SanDisk support, tried everything they mentioned, and it just wouldn't show up on my Mac. It did show up on my iPad. I could see all the files on my iPad, but it simply would not show up on my Mac. Thankfully, I had a backup that I had just recently sent to this drive, so I had all that original storage and files on my T7 Shield, so I didn't lose anything, but it did not show up on my Mac. The only thing I didn't try that I saw online was plugging it into a Windows computer and using the diagnostic tool from Windows, but I tried everything else on the Mac and it just wouldn't show up. So I do have to be, I do have to admit that. It's the only time that happened. And so I would just say with any SSD, if you can, always back it up. Always have in the back of your mind that it is possible that it will fail for this reason or another. Have redundancy. There's nothing fail-proof, and that's just an unfortunate reality. But outside of that one instance, and again, it still showed up on my iPad, and it still had everything on my iPad. So I did wipe it and reformat it, and I haven't had any issues with it since I did that. So at the end of the day, I think going into 2025 and beyond, this is going to be my day-to-day USB-C SSD. It's small, it's fast, it's affordable, goes up to 4 terabytes, and it's just an awesome all-around drive. Now, if there's another drive that comes out that goes up to 8 terabytes and has all these same features and the same form factor, that will get my money. But for the time being, I'm on my 4th drive from Crucial of these, and I plan on keep going as my storage needs increase. It's just really, really portable and excellent. I'll leave a link down in the description if you are interested. If you have a favorite USB-C SSD, let me know down in the comment section, and thanks so much for watching.